Howdy.
Hello.
Here we are again.
What a
And
treat.
today's subject, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Today's subject is integrity. What is it really? And it's one of my favorite subjects. It is something that I have devoted myself to, something that I have paid a great price to experience, and something for me, the ability to practice integrity is a foundational tool to self awareness, self actualization, and sovereignty. It is absolutely integral. It's an integral part of who and what we are. So, just for a little bit of fun here, I see if you're seeing the chat, let me know if there's anything because I
Okay.
don't have the chat going on. It distracts me too much. Um, Give me your version of integrity, please. What do you feel that integrity is?
Well, first of all, I think of the word integer is a number that can't be divided. So I feel like there's something in integrity about wholeness. And
Mm-hmm.
like and then to me, like as a person, a lot of what that means is it's not like I'm saying one thing to this person and then showing a different side to this person, that there's a depth and truthfulness and what you see is what you get, wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much more. I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, there is so much more. And I did a little investigating before the chat and thought, okay, this is my perspective on it. This is how I embody it. This is what I teach and share with the people that I work with. And I just went out there for 10 minutes and did a little bit of exploring. And I thought, wow, there is a great deal of misunderstanding. And there's also a minimization. So integrity, integer, uh, integral.
Integral, yes.
Yeah, I probably didn't say that correctly. Integral. So if you have an automobile, an integral part of the automobile is the engine. No engine, no go. And so this is why I say that integrity is such an absolutely imperative, foundational experience, practice, embodiment, perspective, mindset in order for us to awaken to the truth of who and what we are. And so this is always the theme of the talks that I do on this channel and on the network, LynettaLinda.com, for anybody who doesn't know about us yet. And so I would like to share my perspective of integrity. And indeed, I agree with what you said. All of the components that you just described are a portion of it. For me, to be whole, I like to come from the bigger picture perspective because the relief is in the bigger picture perspective. The broader our perspective, the bigger our perspective, the more we can integrate, the more we can move forward. Okay. And so wholeness. The vast majority of humankind are walking around on the planet right now having absolutely no idea who and what they really are. And to truly practice integrity from my vantage point, from my perspective, and from my experience of doing this work for decades, we have to be whole. We have to be our whole self. Now, from my little bit of research, integrity by most people is considered to be cash register honest. I'm going to be honest with you. And from my vantage point, to be honest is a maybe or maybe not component of integrity. So let's take that one first to start with. If we're going to be honest with someone that it's not safe to be honest with,
Mm-hmm.
we're putting ourselves in a position to be vulnerable, to be hurt. So for me, honesty is a need to know basis. Although I do like to practice being honest myself, I prefer to see myself and to be somebody who's transparent, which for me is a higher practice than honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Transparency is what you see is what you get. I don't have anything to hide, although there may be points where I realize to share personal details about myself, my experience, my community may not be safe in the face of someone who will weaponize it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so transparency is a way of being, honesty is a need to know basis, and vulnerability is to be able to recognize where it's safe to be open to share something that could be weaponized and trusting that it won't be weaponized if we're wise and discerning before we share something that is vulnerable. Okay, For me, to be our whole self means to recognize from the higher perspective who and what we really are, and to embody that to the best of our ability. And most of us don't know who and what we are. Most of us don't realize that we're love incarnate. Now, what is love? Unconditional acceptance, unconditional appreciation. And if I'm going to be who and what I really am, then I'm not going to be moving through life resisting and breaking things down and judging and condemning and having, opinions about everything and unrealistic expectations. So to practice being who and what I am and embody the qualities of who and what I truly am and who and what we all are is integrity. And so if we don't even have a beginning of an understanding of who and what we are, practicing integrity isn't actually going to be possible from my vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say that practicing integrity is something that requires practice, that it is a momentary reprieve. One moment you could be in integrity and another moment not.
Mm-hmm.
To practice integrity as a way of being asks us to reapply the qualities of our whole self over and over and over again. To practice integrity requires that we embody certain qualities like respect, respecting that what might be true for me at my subjective level of the experience in the game of life at the 3D level may not be true for you. So integrity is something that requires that we understand what truth really is. And we did a talk about that. What is truth?
Mm-hmm.
So truth is not our subjective perspective. That's our subjective perspective. So what's true for you is you have light colored hair. What's true for me is I have dark colored hair. Okay. So what's true? Well, at that level, we'd say, okay, it doesn't matter. However, we do reach points in our experience where it most definitely does matter. So what's true is what's real. What's real never dies. What's real creates unity, creates community. What's real is sustainable. And if we haven't yet recognized the truth of who and what we are, what's real and true about us, and what is just our subjective experience, we're going to struggle to practice integrity. The first step of integrity is radical authenticity. To be brutally, radically honest with oneself. Now, you may not have reached a point yet where you've developed boundaries and the inner strength and courage and character to be honest with your external reality. You may not yet have developed to the point where you can be transparent, but we want to move towards that. And the first step is never, ever, ever lie to yourself. First foundational step to integrity is to be brutally honest with yourself. And on your journey, you are practicing that. Mm-hmm. You have chosen to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to be honest with myself. And when it comes to the external world at that point, it's a need to know basis. Mm-hmm. The name of the game is to put yourself in front of a firing squad. The name of the game is to become able to recognize that life is dangerous here on earth. Okay, the blood and the bullets are real. So we need to learn how to practice discernment. And we need to learn how to develop boundaries, to implement boundaries, to sustain boundaries, and to enforce boundaries. And before we can do that, we need to develop our inner value system. For me, integrity has nothing to do with morals, which was another thing that I found when I did my little excursion on the internet. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in morals. I believe in values, and I believe in values that align us with the divine that we are. Morals are subjective. So let's take example in the Catholic Church. Less than 100 years ago, if you were homosexual, you could go to jail. Now it's perfectly fine. So if you're going to base yourself on morals, then you're subject to society's social conditioning and programming, and morals will change as society deems. Okay. So what is now considered moralistic 100 years ago would have put you in jail. So I encourage people to challenge the idea about what morals are, because they're subjective. They're based on the external reality and its measuring stick. I instead encourage to practice integrity values. Integrity creates the space for us to support and sustain what we value. And when we value what creates wholeness, to be our whole self, when we value that, it gets really easy. When we value that which creates unity, when we value what's creating community, it's real, it's true, and it will never die, providing we consistently put our attention upon that intention and embody it.
Whoa, you said like 100 things that I could go into. It's so good.
Yeah, and I'm not done.
No. How do you know if you're lying to yourself? How do I know if I'm lying to myself?
Well, you're going to feel it.
Okay.
If we're not being authentic, okay, if we're being fake and we're being brutally honest with ourselves, then essentially what happens is a conversation happens energetically, which is going to largely register in the gut, in the sixth chakra. A conversation happens between our higher conscious immortal self and the mortal egoic self. And the higher self is basically going to go, and that might feel like a niggly in the gut.
Okay.
And if we're going to the guide inside and we're tuning inward, which is another essential component to practicing and embodying integrity, then we're going to hear that and we're going to go, what was that? And this is where it's important to get interested, to get curious and say, okay, what was that? What was that? And before we can get interested and get curious, we may need to release many layers of social conditioning and programming that would shame us, that would shun us, that would shut us down. We need to learn how to tune into our feelings. This is practicing integrity is a lifetime practice. Okay.
And I just had this little click that's like, the shame stops us from being willing to really look at anything in ourselves that's going on. And if love is unconditional appreciation and unconditional acceptance, this is self-love, because I'm unconditionally accepting anything that I'm feeling. And that allows me to get curious and be like, oh yeah, no, I really was doing that for like self-serving purposes, or I really was manipulating in that. Anything. You can look at anything.
Or I was afraid.
Yeah.
When we practice being who and what we are, which is to receive what life gives us without resistance, to be open to loving whatever rises up, which is to unconditionally accept and unconditionally appreciate. And one of the first components of appreciation is respect. I respect that you're having a different subjective experience. I don't need it to be the same as mine. I want to find the bridge between us. And that's what's real and true. And if I'm going to find the bridge between us, then I've got to be radically authentic with myself and be accountable and responsible. These are all components of integrity, to be accountable and responsible for where I'm putting my energy, for what I'm letting out, for what I'm saying, for where I'm putting my intention and my intentions. I have to be radically honest with myself to say, did I create this problem? What's my part in it? And we can't do that if we're still cycling in the shame and blame game, which is society inundates us with it in a million different ways. So again, practicing integrity is not something that happens overnight. And it's not something that happens permanently and completely. It is something that we must continuously maintain and embody as each moment presents itself in life. So personal accountability is absolutely essential. And personal accountability will ask us to become aware of our own feelings. And a lot of us think that, you know, I'm in charge of my emotions. I'm in charge of my emotions. I can shut them down. I can control them. I can present you with a steely face. I can just shut this whole thing down, or I can just completely allow and become a people pleaser, or, you know, that isn't managing your emotions. To manage your emotions is to actually allow yourself to move through it, to allow and love what rises up, and to receive it as a gift, moving through it, allowing it to reveal its message to us. And this ties into the shadow work. This ties into recognizing that shadow is not a side of you. Okay, that's a lie. And anything that's a lie is going to collapse eventually. It's just a question of how big the boom gets before it collapses in your own experience, right? The first stage of awakening is collapse. So to move forward, we have to embrace so many of these qualities. And to say that, I don't want to go too far, too quickly here, back to integrity. So to receive our emotions is to say, whatever I'm feeling is okay. I'm going to be loving with myself first.
Mhm.
I'm going to appreciate and therefore respect that this is all happening for a reason. And that's going to ask us to develop another awareness, or to remember, more accurately, to embody the remembering that everything is happening for a reason, that nothing happens by accident, and that everything is happening for me.
Mhm.
Okay, so integrity in its entirety is a bit of a scavenger hunt.
Mm. Yeah, you're always looking at, like, I think of that game when we were kids and you'd hit one little thing down.
Whack-a-mole.
Yes, the other would pop up. It's like, okay, I've cleaned up this aspect, this relationship with this person at work or whatever, but like, ooh, what's creeping up over here that needs my attention?
Which is then going to ask us to look at expectations, which I call Joe jobs, judgments, opinions, and expectations, right? And we need to start to recognize that we're programmed in this society to have the idea that says we have to be perfect. And that's another lie. How do you know? Because perfection isn't possible. It's not real. It's an idea. It's a concept that we've been indoctrinated into to keep us in the spin so that we don't ever recognize integrity and embody it because we're too busy chasing our tails.
Mhm. I think I heard you say perfectionism is mental illness, and that was so
Mental balance.
okay.
You're
So
out of balance.
yeah.
Okay. So I like to say that we're perfectly imperfect. And so many of us, different generations, different programming. Okay. So many of us were indoctrinated to believe that when we were perfect, we'd get the love.
Mhm.
And that we had to be perfect based on external expectations, social conditioning, and programming. And one of the things that we want to realize as a component of integrity is what's real and what's not. And the external reality, in every way that it expresses itself, isn't real. It's temporary. It's an illusion. It's like going to a movie and
Mhm.
saying that whatever happened in that movie is real. No, it's not. It's an illusion. It's a story. And that's what our external reality is. And until we reach that point where we start to recognize that the external reality is a game, right? For
Mhm.
anybody who's interested, mathemagical.com is a book an audiobook that I created to support the beginner in understanding that the 3D reality is a game. And it is a game that's designed to steal your attention, and your attention creates whatever it's focused upon. Back to the bigger picture of understanding who and what we really are. So
Mhm.
that external reality is deliberately designed and created to captivate your attention in every way, shape, and form that it can, to prevent you from becoming integral and your whole self.
Mhm.
So one of the first stages is recognizing that the external reality isn't real, that our external reality is a mirror, it's a reflection of our internal reality.
Mhm.
And if we lack awareness internally, it's going to be reflected as outer chaos. If we lack values that align with divine, create unity, community that are sustainable for the greater good of all, our external reality is going to reflect that. If we aren't honest with ourselves, radically honest with ourselves, we're going to find nobody outside of us in that external reality is honest with us. We're going to go, everybody's a liar. Right? The
Yeah.
mirror is an important component.
And that happens in your own little sphere, like your own life, and it happens globally, right? That
Yes, yes. So we're each experiencing, and right now we're going through massive timeline shifts. So each of us as an individual is having our own subjective experience. And from the biggest picture perspective, we want to recognize that you're alone here, Chris. This is your universe. You manifested me.
Mhm.
Okay. And I recognize I'm alone here. I manifested my universe. And the level of the experience that I'm having from very low suffering, pain, contracted state, destructive energy, to high constructive expanded state is going to be determined by my inner level of consciousness. And in the 3D reality, the higher the level of consciousness, the more freedom, the more unity, the more community, the more constructive your energy will be. That basically means the more you have allowed the truth of who and what you are in. And this is the practice of integrity.
So does practicing integrity expand your consciousness?
Yes. And if you stay on that path
Uh-huh.
each day, doing the best that you can, doing my best to do my best. Perfectionism is mental imbalance. You'll go insane trying to do that. Okay. You'll burn yourself out and you'll drive people away. Just do your best to do your best. To be human is to be frail, is to be fragile, is to be raw, is to be real, is to experience pain. Pain is necessary. The size of your pain will be in proportion to the size of your pearl. The suffering part is optional. And the more we embody integrity to be our whole self, the awakened, connected, divine self, expressing in body, as within, so without, as above, so below, as within, so without, the more we experience peace, harmony, and flow, the less suffering. So the more we embody integrity, the less we suffer. Because the more we bring in of who and what we really are, which are the qualities like compassion, that's a bridge builder.
Mm-hmm.
Honesty on a need to know basis, where it's safe to do so. To practice boundaries, to practice courage and strength, to stand in your own truth, regardless of what that world out there is saying. And this is what's happening for those of us that are awakening now. We're being called to stand in the truth of who and what we are, or bow to the external slave driving parasitic class. And for those of us who truly love ourselves, we will not bow. I do not bow to any human. I bow to the divine only and ever. And that for me is the cornerstone of my own integrity, which is each choice I'm making, is each thought I'm thinking, is the behavior I'm choosing. Am I honored by the company I keep, what I eat and where I sleep, what I feed my brain, what I feed my body? Are they serving and supporting integrity, my ability to be whole, or not?
It's like integrity is the North Star. And so much of what I see and probably experience too, or the shedding away, is like where addiction's the North Star, or like addiction to what other people think, or addiction to, external.
Addiction is distraction. Let's be clear. Okay. And you'll see a lot of people running around using as an excuse to remain the victim of their experience. I have an addictive personality. No, you don't. You're having a distraction experience, which will eventually collapse and get so painful that you'll become as desperate as the dying can be to reach into the guide inside, to call that divine force in, which will immediately answer your call. Free will.
Mm-hmm.
So we're taught we have addictive personalities, distractions, addictions, gambling, sex, alcohol, drugs, food, emotions, you name it. Okay. Exercise, house cleaning. Those were two of mine. Okay. Mm-hmm. They are essentially distractions that keep us externally focused, preventing us from going to the guide inside, which is an essential component of integrity, and embodying the truth of who and what we are, in spite of the external pressure, in spite of the external control, in spite of the external bullies. Now, when we connect with that eternal force that is our true self, the bullies become right size. The bullies become very manageable, because you realize a bully is a coward. A bully is a parasitic energy. And so when we are bullying someone else, we are not practicing integrity. We are not in our own power. And we're essentially trying to steal it from someone else. It's also what you could call vampire energy. Mm-hmm. And that's what the parasitic class is doing. Because the parasitic class is very low vibratory energy. They have not accessed their ability to create their own reality, clean and green, without karma. Mm-hmm. Karma is a lack of self-awareness. Integrity is the solution to karma. Okay. Yeah. Karma is not punishment. Karma is a lack of self-awareness, and the opposite of karma is freedom. And the path to that freedom is integrity. So the parasitic class at this point in time is practicing psychological bullying at an all-time epidemic level in an attempt to distract people, keep them in addictive behaviors so that they don't answer the call to return home, to master energy and emotion, which is the path of integrity. They don't want us to embrace our true birthright. They don't want us to be our whole integral selves, because if we are, they no longer have the ability to feed off of us. And we want to remember, again, back to the bigger picture, that we are multidimensional, interdimensional, immortal, multisensory creator gods. Whatever we put our attention upon, whether we're conscious of where it's going or not, we create. We're so powerful. We create. They don't want us to know that. So they've got us going, look over here, look over here. Oh, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh. Instead of go to the stillness. And before you can go to the stillness, you may need to release all kinds of layers of shame and blame and social conditioning and programming and opinions and judgments and unrealistic expectations, irrational fear, irrational doubt. So the path to integrity will also teach one over time to become the master of irrational fear and irrational doubt. Doubt lies to us, so fear can rob us. And fear is a false evaluation about your reality. Integrity is the polar opposite. To be able to correctly assess what's really going on, what's real, what's really going on, and what's not. That's an illusion. Your bid for my attention, my creative energy, is one that I can give you consciously or unconsciously. So are you honored by the company you keep, what you eat, and where you sleep? Are you practicing discernment before you willy-nilly give away that incredibly powerful energy that at your current level of consciousness, you don't even have the capacity to recognize how powerful it is? Careful where you aim that thing. If you attend some of my workshops, you're going to get a little plastic eyeball and we're going to stick it right there. Careful where you aim that thing. Be very careful where you put your attention. It will either create the capacity to practice integrity as a way of being or completely sabotage it.
And the stories we may tell ourselves that take us off integrity are probably mostly fear-based. Like I'm thinking of
move us out of alignment.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't take us off.
Okay.
It just moves us out of balance.
Okay.
So we're not good or bad or right or wrong, superior, inferior, winners and losers, success and failure. That's all polarized thinking. So while you're a winner, deep down, you're afraid of being a loser. And if you're a winner and you like the feeling of being a winner, you might find that your ego is willing to do some pretty deep, dark things to remain the winner because that's your idea of success, which is a lie. If
And
I'm good,
the fear about being a loser, like the fear,
a false evaluation about reality, instead of recognizing any polarizing belief system will move you out of balance. Balance is integrity at your level of consciousness. Okay. So fear is the way that we are tricked, given opportunity, experience the contrast between balance, harmony, ease, and flow, and imbalance. So we need to get rid of polarized thinking. That's one of the first things that I recommend collapsing, because there is no good or bad or right or wrong. There is no superior, no inferior. We are one being having a separate experience, right? So as we start to collapse fear, we recognize it's not real. It's an illusion. And the more you practice integrity, the more you embody the wholeness of who and what you are, the more capacity you have to diffuse that fear.
Yeah. And you get a taste of that alignment and it gets less and less tolerable to spend much time. Of course you will, but to spend so much time that you just going further away.
And we become willing to pay the price, no matter what the price is, to maintain integrity, which is alignment with your higher divine self, embodying who and what you really are to the fullness of your current level of consciousness. So myself, I've had to walk away from my entire first family. I've had to lay boundaries with people over and over and over again. I've had to walk away from millions of dollars in physical and financial resources, and happy to do it, because nothing is worth the price of compromising your integrity. Your integrity is the it's the path home. And once we start to feel the feelings of embodying our wholeness, to practice integrity as a way of being in the physical reality, it feels so good. It feels so clean that we're like, nope, nope, that relationship isn't worth it. You start to recognize that nothing in the external reality, nothing, and I mean, there is no relationship, there is absolutely nothing in my external reality at my current level of the experience that's worth the price of forfeiting my integrity. I don't care who you are. So integrity also means embodying what I feel is my truth as well. So integrity isn't just embodying the truth of who and what we all are, it's also embodying subjective perspective. And that for me means somebody might accuse me of lying, but if I know I didn't, I'm not going to defend myself. I'm going to remain in my integrity, and I'm just going to let it go. I don't need to convince you. That's not integrity. That's disempowering yourself. If I know, brutal, radical self-honesty, if I know I didn't tell a lie, then so be it. Now, if you want to communicate with me in an open and respectful manner, I'd be willing to share the circumstances with you from my perspective. But if you're going to attack me, if you're going to force me to defend myself to remain in the connection, I won't do it. Integrity doesn't defend. Integrity embodies. It models the way. Most of us don't know how to do that. Not yet. Many of us are awakening to it, though. It's fabulous to see. It's absolutely fabulous and so inspiring. I love it. I love what I'm seeing happening now.
That defending piece isn't integrity. Is that because as soon as you're defending, you're trying to still get something
Polarized.
external? Okay.
I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So to defend, to deny, to deflect, to distort, and to delay are all anti-integrity practices.
Okay.
Right? To practice embodying love, which isn't romance, sentiment, lust. Okay. To practice embodying who and what you are, which is I unconditionally accept, I unconditionally appreciate. I take full responsibility and accountability for my experience. I'm not going to defend myself. Now, if I did something that was out of order, then I'm going to take responsibility and accountability. I will not tolerate or allow shame and blame. Why would I do that? I'm too busy embodying integrity, which means if I feel I was out of alignment, if I feel I owe an apology, then I will deliver it. But if I don't feel that I owe you an apology, you're not going to get one. And that's not me saying I'm right and you're wrong. That's me saying, if I apologize for something that you perceive to be a crime, I'm abandoning myself. Integrity means I will never abandon myself. Integrity doesn't mean that I may not see things from a different perspective as I evolve and embody integrity more and more. It doesn't mean that, well, last year, I thought I was in the correct position, but now I'm seeing that I wasn't. So I'm now going to go back and correct it. No shame, no blame. Go back, correct, course correct and redirect. Course correct and redirect. That's integrity. So many components.
So many. And is that as we grow in awareness and consciousness, we may look back and see misalignments. How important is it to go back and clean those up? I guess it depends.
Well, the first step is going to be to forgive yourself. You didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. And integrity is a constant evolution of receiving what rises up to be released. Okay. So for example, let's take parenting. Now, I never, ever deliberately set out to harm my children, ever. I really, truly never did. It doesn't mean, however, that while I was in my own pain or confused or unaware, that I didn't inadvertently harm them. So I'm not going to blame or shame myself. I'm going to forgive myself for not knowing what I didn't know, but I'm also going to hold myself accountable and apologize and say, you know what, I didn't mean to hurt you, but I get that I did. It wasn't intentional. I don't want you to believe that it was intentional. It wasn't. But I do realize now in hindsight that it did harm you. And I'm deeply sorry for that. My conscience is telling me that I need to correct it, and I want to correct it. When we're truly sorry, the first thing we want to do is make amends. That brings the relief. So I want to apologize and say, you know what? I did harm you. I didn't mean to, but I did harm you. So I'm going to be accountable for that. And how may I help you now to recover? And the first step is to acknowledge it. And that can be really, really difficult, especially now as we're seeing so many young people and older people, anybody who's really stuck in victim mentality is being socially conditioned and programmed to blame their parents. And it can get really hard as a parent to practice integrity and keep the bridge of communication open if they're busy firing at you, attacking you, and criticizing and condemning. And you're like, you know, amid the bullets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that can be really, really tricky. And if that's the situation, then I would encourage going to the guide inside and essentially communicating with your higher self to communicate with their higher self, to start to soften the bullets, to let divine source soften the blow, to start to soften the path toward each other. And this always works when we practice it correctly. I use it myself all the time. So I had a conflict myself recently with somebody I love very, very deeply. And I went to try to send a message several times and it just wasn't coming. So it said to me, not yet, just be patient. But my intention was always to create that bridge. Always, this isn't over until love is the answer, and love is always the answer. You are the answer. Be who and what you are, and you become the solution. That's again, integrity, right? So I just couldn't quite come up with the words. And because they weren't coming with an ease and a flow, when in line with divine, everything will go with an ease and a flow. Because they weren't coming with an ease and a flow, I just kept waiting and thought, okay, you know, I'm going to revisit it again today, and I'll revisit again tomorrow, whatever it takes. And I didn't need to. The other person reached out to me. But I did connect with my higher self, taking responsibility for the experience and my part in it, and wanting unity, but not quite knowing how to go about it. So that's where I basically say, I surrender to the divine. I surrender to higher consciousness and say, that is my intention, but how and when isn't my job. And now this person has reached out to me. So now is the how, and that was the how, and this is the when.
Yeah.
So we can soften that pathway by being radically honest with ourselves and internally practicing compassion, kindness, empathy, loving kindness. Okay, true, authentic, loving kindness. To have the strength and the courage to understand rational and irrational doubt, to embody all these different tools, right? It's like having a toolkit. Integrity in the wholeness is, as a practice, ongoing, evolving practice, to incorporate more and more tools, to embody the practice of those tools, creating greater and greater alignment with our higher conscious self. The more we embody the truth of who and what we are here to manifest the glory of the divine within us. The more we embody that, the more ease and flow, and the more we model the way for others. Not because we're right and they're wrong, but simply because we've developed to that point, and we remember that there's only one of us here.
Does integrity have a vibration?
Yes, most definitely it does. A lot of people will say that love is the highest frequency. It's not. Authenticity is the highest frequency, and authenticity is the first stage of integrity. True integrity is authenticity, and authenticity is the highest frequency because it's the truth, and we are the truth. We are love and we are the truth. They're interchangeable. So when we practice authenticity, we talked about this before we went live, that authenticity is so attractive. And authenticity may ask us to practice tough love. I practice tough love, not because I want to harm or hurt, but because I think it's disrespectful to sugarcoat. I think it's disrespectful for me to decide that you can't handle the truth that's presenting itself in your life. That's arrogant.
Yeah.
So to practice tough love to me is to say, I may need to deliver a difficult truth. The truth absolutely can be difficult to receive. But if I can lovingly deliver that difficult truth, it unites us. It's authentic. It feels safe. It's attractive. But it requires, I can't give what I don't have. It requires that I do it with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my tools in my integrity wholeness kit is to have what I call cut the crap conversations with myself. And it's to look myself in the mirror, knowing that as a part of my experience here, my ego has been given to me as an experience point, as a tool, a venue for experience, to pull me out of balance so that I can have the opportunity to master energy and emotion and pull myself back into balance. So I respect and appreciate my ego and the role that it's designed to play. And I also know that if my ego is ruling, then my divine self cannot be. So I will look myself in the eye and say, okay, cut the crap. What's really going on here? And because I don't shame myself, because I practice self-forgiveness as a way of being, it gets easier and easier to have those conversations and to cut to the chase, to get to the heart of the matter and say, okay, all right, I can see what I was doing. I'm taking responsibility and accountability, course correct, redirect, back on track.
Mm-hmm.
And again, 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 and again. And this is not something that's easily marketed.
Yeah.
Okay. This doesn't sound really attractive. Okay. It doesn't sound inspiring until you begin to practice it and you experience the relief that comes with it and the delicious feeling of alignment and wholeness. And there's nothing that beats that connection, that feeling of inner divine alignment. Nothing beats that feeling. And that's when we become willing and inspired and motivated to let go of whatever is going on in our external reality, whatever belief, whatever relationship, whatever thought, whatever choice, whatever action, whatever food, whatever chemical, whatever it is, we become, no, that's going to threaten my alignment. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to be this. I'm not going to think that. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I've often, like in those moments, and it could be just this simple, like saying no when I mean no to something, when I might have been like, oh, maybe, like in the people pleasy way, but like saying no, like that, and then feeling that alignment, it's like, that's the juice. And I think that's most of what everyone, like me, I'm looking for in all the other places. It's that feeling.
That's boundaries.
Yeah.
And when your boundaries are based on your values and your values are based on what brings unity and relief and community, and it always will, and we learn to say no because we're protecting our boundaries, then we realize that our no is powerful, which makes our yes even more powerful. If you don't have the ability to say no, your yes doesn't mean anything.
All watered down.
Yeah, you're a people pleaser. Yeah, sure. Okay. And you think, wow, that person did that really kind thing for me. No, they weren't actually doing it from a place of loving kindness. They were doing it from a place of weak inner boundaries and an inability to say no. And then don't be surprised if they don't have the ability to say no based on values, then their yes doesn't mean anything. And if they give you a yes when they'd really rather say no, don't be surprised when they resent you down the road.
Mm-hmm. And you can feel it. Ugh.
Right. And this is something that I talk about in our talk of truth. What is it really? The truth is who and what we are. It's radical authenticity. It is what it is. There's no sugarcoating. There's no games. There's no distraction. There's no distortion. There's no inversion. And the truth always loops back on itself. So you'll find that every subject that I bring up based on my current level of consciousness will loop back. So every challenge that we meet on the path to integrity, you'll find that you've already got the tool or you're developing the tool to practice truth. So the truth always loops back on itself. Boundaries lead to understanding of values. Values lead to self-awareness through self-reflection. And that leads to recognizing our behavior choices, people pleasing, over-functioning, under-functioning. It leads to understanding what I call the 4 demon mindsets: victim, needy, righteous, entitled.
Mm-hmm.
The path to integrity is essentially saying, I'm going to challenge you to release yourself from those 4 prisons. There's no power in victim, needy, righteous, entitled mindsets. So when we practice the path to integrity over time through consistent application, consistency is absolutely very important on the path of integrity. As we practice those tools of consistency, right, we'll find that life will serve us, divine grace will guide us to the next lesson, the next lesson, the next lesson, and remembering we're never given anything we can't handle. We really aren't. The question is, do you choose to step up, embrace the power of who and what you are, your birthright, or not? And if you're not ready now, that's okay. Don't worry. One day, things will eventually get so painful that you will become as desperate as the dying can be, and you will become motivated either in this embodiment or the next one. And that's what we're going through right now. We're calling it the Great Awakening, the end of times. There's a number of different ways of describing it. And it's essentially divine has drawn a line in the sand and said, anybody who's ready, let's go. Anybody who's not, that's okay. But if you're ready, now is the time. And I am seeing now myself, having done this work for decades, and I began channeling and discussing metaphysics at the age of 6 years old with my grandmother. So I've had many years to reflect. I'm almost 60 years old, and I've had many years to reflect. And from my observation of what it was like when I was a little girl and a teenager and a young adult and a more mature adult, what I'm seeing happening in the external reality now is absolutely phenomenal and beautiful. When I was a little girl, this was not a subject you discussed with many people. I remember saying to my grandmother, I love that you talk about this stuff with me. I said to her, I said, nobody talks about this with me. And she looked at me and she said, isn't it interesting we can have this conversation? Now, I didn't realize at the time that most little girls weren't discussing metaphysics and the Great Awakening. We were discussing the Great Awakening over 50 years ago.
Wow.
When there were very few that understood. So there's so much here now to support us on the path of integrity. There are many like myself who answered the call to come and be of service and support. I can't awaken you. I don't want to. That's not my responsibility. And having gone through the process myself, I know I can't. It's a fruitless endeavor. But I can serve you and I can support you should you be ready and willing at this time. And so as soon as we become ready and willing to practice the path to integrity, which is the path to mastery, everything we need will come. Everything you need, the guides, the teachers, the tools, the scene, the setting, everything you need will come. We cannot recognize this, however, until we actually truly walk the path. Thinking about it is one thing. Embodying it is another. And that's such a crucial piece of integrity, to embody it, to be now, again, now. To practice that embodiment is absolutely essential. There is no awakening without it. No one is coming to save you. Nobody can. And you don't want them to when you remember from the fullness, from the big picture perspective, who and what you are. You don't want them to. It's beneath you. It's a downgrade. I can do this myself. I can hear my 3-year-old son saying, I do myself. Okay, I think he was even younger than when he was fully articulate at 3 years old. So he was younger than that. And it was like he's trying to tie his shoes. Okay, so he's probably about 2. And he was determined to do it himself. That boy was not going to accept any downgrades. And it's the same for us. The journey itself, the embodiment, the integrity on the journey is in itself the reward.
So good. Wow.
Wonderful. So that's probably a good note for us to end on.
Pretty juicy and high. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful. So for those of us that are experiencing fear right now, that's reasonable. Okay. However, it's not a place you need to stay. Your mission here is to master energy and emotion and to set yourself free from the external tyranny, the lies, the distractions that are designed to deliberately keep you in the disempowered state. So just set the intention right now. I accept and allow my full divine birthright, and watch all of the parts outside of you begin to move to immediately accommodate that new intention. the intention to maintain integrity, to practice radical self-honesty, authenticity. Just practice that, and everything else will take care of itself. We're never alone. We're never alone. Absolutely not.
Beautiful.
Thank you for today's chat, Chris. I
Thank
really appreciate your time. Thank you. Have a
Mhm.
wonderful day. Cheers.
Bye, everybody.